AITA for not wanting the puppy my BF bought for my birthday present? The living room was chaos. Balloons still floating in corners from my small birthday gathering, wrapping paper shredded across the coffee table, and then that sound. A short, high-pitched bark. I turned, and there he was, a tiny golden retriever puppy tumbling toward me with oversized paws, a red bow tied around his neck. My boyfriend, grinning ear to ear, clapped his hands like he'd just delivered the best surprise in the world. "Happy birthday, babe! Meet your new puppy!" Everyone in the room erupted with excitement. Ahs and squeals filled the air. But I froze. My stomach dropped, my chest tightened, and my throat felt like it had closed up. Because in that moment, the only thought I had was, I don't want this puppy. I could feel my boyfriend's eyes on me, searching for a reaction, waiting for me to scream with joy or drop to the floor in happy tears. But I couldn't. My hands trembled as the puppy sniffed at my shoes, wagging its tail, completely innocent. And then my boyfriend said, louder this time, "Come on, pick him up, he's yours." Everyone looked at me expectantly, but my heart was hammering for all the wrong reasons. I forced a smile, bent down, and gently lifted the puppy into my arms. His fur was soft, his little body warm, but instead of joy, I felt panic. Because what no one knew, not even my boyfriend, was that I had already been struggling. I was juggling long shifts at work, taking care of my sick mom on weekends, barely keeping my own apartment clean. I was exhausted, barely holding my life together. And now there was a living, breathing creature depending on me? I didn't know how to say it, not in front of everyone, not with my boyfriend beaming like he'd just given me the world. So I swallowed my feelings, smiled for the pictures, and prayed no one noticed the tears pricking the corners of my eyes. But later that night, when the guests had left and it was just the two of us, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I turned to him and whispered the words I knew would break his heart. I don't want the puppy. The silence that followed was worse than any scream. He stared at me, his face going pale, the smile dropping completely. And then, very slowly, he set down the glass he was holding and said, "What did you just say?" That's when everything exploded. His voice wasn't loud at first. It was sharp, low, like he was holding something back. "You're joking, right? Tell me you're joking." I shook my head, my hands twisting together nervously. The puppy was asleep in a small crate beside the couch, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing in the room. "I can't take care of a puppy right now," I said quietly. "I didn't ask for this. I don't want this." His face went red. He leaned back in the chair, staring at me like I had just spat on the gift. "Are you serious? Do you have any idea what I went through to get him? The cost, the wait list, the training supplies? I thought this would make you happy." My chest ached. "I know you meant well. I know you thought it would. But a dog is a huge responsibility. I'm not in the right place to." "Don't," he snapped, cutting me off. "Don't make this about responsibility. You're acting ungrateful, spoiled. Do you know how many people would kill for a puppy like that?" The word ungrateful stung worse than anything else. I felt my face heat up, shame curling in my stomach, but also anger. Because hadn't I been clear from the beginning of our relationship that I wasn't ready for a pet? Hadn't I told him I needed to focus on stabilizing my life? I took a shaky breath. "I told you months ago that I wasn't ready for a dog. You knew that. Why didn't you listen?" He slammed his hand down on the table, and the sound made the puppy stir in the crate. I flinched. "Because sometimes people don't know what they want until they have it," he hissed. "I thought you'd see him and realize you were wrong. I thought it would change your mind." The room went silent, except for the soft whine of the puppy, now awake and pressing his nose against the bars of the crate. His little whimper cut through me like glass. "I'm not wrong," I whispered, "and I won't change my mind." My boyfriend stared at me, eyes dark, his jaw clenched so tightly I thought it might crack. And then, very slowly, he said the words that made my stomach flip, words that made me realize this wasn't just about a dog. "If you give him up, you're giving me up too." The words hung in the air like poison. "If you give him up, you're giving me up too." For a second, I just stared at him, unsure if I'd heard right. My ears were ringing, my chest heavy. "You're giving me an ultimatum?" I asked slowly, my voice trembling. His jaw tightened. "I'm not calling it that. I'm just saying, if you can't accept this gift, if you can't accept him, then maybe you don't really accept me." I blinked back tears, my throat burning. "That's not fair. This isn't about you. This is about—" "Don't say it's about responsibility again," he cut in, his voice sharp. "You're making excuses. You're scared. You're selfish." Selfish? That word hit me like a slap. I had spent the last year breaking my back at work, caring for my sick mom, trying to keep some sense of normalcy in my life. Selfish? The unfairness of it made my hands shake. "I never asked for this," I said louder, finally letting the anger seep into my voice. "You didn't listen to me. You bought what you wanted, not what I needed. And now you're punishing me for not reacting the way you pictured in your head?" He stood then, pacing across the room, his hands running through his hair. "You don't get it. That dog was supposed to be ours, a new step forward, a future. If you can't handle a puppy, how are we supposed to handle a family someday? The words hit harder than I expected. My eyes widened. Are you seriously comparing this to children? He spun to face me, and the look on his face chilled me. Maybe I am, because if you're not ready for this, maybe you're not ready for me. The puppy barked, a sharp sound that made both of us flinch. The room felt too small, too suffocating. My birthday had turned into a battlefield, and I didn't even know how we'd gotten here. I wanted to scream, I wanted to run, I wanted to crawl into bed and pretend none of this was happening. But instead, I stood still, shaking, staring at the man I thought I knew. And then he stepped closer, his voice dropping into something quiet, almost dangerous. So, what's it gonna be? Me and the puppy, or nothing at all? The ultimatum sat heavy in the air, pressing down on me until I felt like I couldn't breathe. His eyes were locked on mine, daring me to speak. My hands clenched at my sides. You can't do this to me, I said, my voice cracking. You can't force me to choose like this. But he didn't flinch. He just crossed his arms, waiting. The silence stretched so long, I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I looked over at the crate. The puppy's big brown eyes blinked up at me, tail wagging uncertainly, completely innocent, completely unaware that he had become a weapon in this war. My throat tightened. This isn't love, I whispered finally. Love isn't supposed to feel like this. His expression hardened, but I kept going, the words tumbling out now. I told you I wasn't ready. I told you what I could and couldn't handle. And instead of respecting that, you tried to trap me with a puppy, with guilt, with ultimatums. For a moment, something flickered in his face. Shame, maybe? Or maybe just frustration. But then it was sharp again. Fine, he snapped. If that's how you feel, then maybe I made a mistake. Maybe you're not the person I thought you were. The sting of that sentence cut deep, but I lifted my chin. Maybe I'm not, but I'd rather be myself than bend into something I'm not just to keep you happy. His face turned red, and before I could say another word, he grabbed his coat from the chair, yanked his keys off the table, and stormed toward the door. The sound of the puppy whining filled the silence. He stopped with his hand on the doorknob, looked back at me, and said in a low, bitter voice, "You'll regret this." The door slammed shut. And just like that, I was alone, with the little puppy pawing at the crate bars, crying for comfort, while I stood frozen in the middle of my living room, shaking from head to toe. I didn't know if I had just saved myself, or destroyed everything. The silence after the door slammed was deafening. The puppy whimpered in the crate, scratching at the metal bars, desperate for comfort. My body moved on autopilot. I bent down, opened the crate, and scooped him up. His tiny body trembled against my chest, warm and fragile, and for a moment I felt both furious and guilty at the same time. I sat on the couch with him in my lap, staring at the door, wondering if he'd come back, wondering if I even wanted him to. My phone buzzed. A text lit up the screen. Him. You don't get it. That puppy is yours now. Deal with it. Another buzz, seconds later. Him. And if you can't handle that, then maybe you never deserved me in the first place. I felt my stomach twist. The words weren't just cruel, they were final. I stared at them until my eyes blurred, my thumb hovering over the screen, but I didn't reply. I didn't have to, because 5 minutes later, my phone exploded with message after message, his anger escalating in real time. Him. You embarrassed me. Him. Do you know how much I spent? Him. You'll regret throwing this away. Him. You'll regret losing me. The puppy whined again, pawing at my shirt. I clutched him tighter, tears spilling down my cheeks. Not because I missed my boyfriend in that moment, but because I finally saw the truth. The gift wasn't love. It was a leash, a collar I hadn't asked for, a way to tie me down and test my limits. And he didn't care about what I wanted. He only cared about winning. I set the phone down, ignoring the endless buzzing, and whispered to the puppy, "It's not your fault. None of this is your fault." But deep down, I knew one thing with chilling clarity. This wasn't just the end of a relationship. It was the start of a fight, because he wasn't done with me. And the worst part? Neither was the puppy. 2 nights later, I woke up to scratching at my front door. At first, I thought it was the puppy, but he was curled beside me, fast asleep. My heart thudded as the scratching grew louder, deliberate, steady, like fingernails dragging against wood. I crept to the door, holding my breath. On the welcome mat lay a folded note in his handwriting. 4 words. You can't escape us. And beside it, a small dog collar, brand new, unused, just waiting.